When Rome finally fell, people did not lose stocks or dollars. They lost something bigger. They lost the only economy they understood. For centuries, Rome was the center of the world. Its roads tied three continents together. Its coins moved from Britain to Egypt. Its taxes fed cities of a size no one had seen before. Then the system began to rot from the inside. Emperors spent more than they could tax. Armies had to be paid. Bribes had to be paid. So the government did the oldest trick in history. They debased the money. Silver coins were mixed with cheap metals. Each new emperor stretched the metal a little thinner. A denarius that once held real silver became a joke. Prices rose again and again. Soldiers demanded more coins for the same pay. Merchants raised prices just to stay alive. Ordinary people watched their savings die in their own hands. Trade began to shrink. Long-distance commerce became dangerous and unprofitable. Roads were less safe. Pirates returned to the seas. Government demanded more taxes just as production fell. Cities started to empty out. People walked away from money and moved back to land. Rome's economy did not collapse in one night. It crumbled in slow motion. But by the late empire, the old cash economy was broken. Coins no longer meant security. Paper promises did not exist yet. What survived were real things, not imperial slogans. When you look closely at those final centuries, a pattern appears. Most forms of wealth decayed with the empire. But four kinds of assets kept their power. They mattered before the collapse. They mattered during it. And they still mattered after Rome had gone. The first surviving asset was productive land. Not a palace in the city. Not a marble statue or a bathhouse. Land that grew food. Land that supported people. As taxes rose, small farmers were crushed. Many lost their plots and fled. But large estates in the countryside became fortresses. They produced grain, oil, wine, and livestock. They could feed the owners and their workers directly. They could pay taxes in kind, not just in money. They could support private guards when the legions failed. Rich Romans began shifting wealth into rural villas. They bought land, not townhouses. They turned their estates into self-contained mini-economies. Workshops, mills, presses, stables, and fields surrounded the house. In a world where coins lost value, fields did not. You cannot debase wheat. You cannot print more olives out of nothing. When imperial authority faded in the West, these estates stayed. Many later became the seeds of medieval manners. Names changed, languages shifted, but the pattern was the same. Those who held productive land kept real power. Everyone else rented it, served on it, or begged from it. The second asset that survived was actual food. Not claims on food, food itself. Rome had always lived on grain. The empire shipped wheat from North Africa and Egypt to Italian ports. The state gave free grain to citizens in Rome. That was politics. As the system weakened, those shipments became less reliable. Raids cut the sea lanes. Droughts hit harvests. Corrupt officials stole from the granaries. In bad years, the city went hungry. But people who controlled grain did not. Army commanders who guarded granaries held leverage. Landowners with huge storehouses could command loyalty. They could feed workers when wages meant nothing. They could trade grain for labor, weapons, and protection. In famines, grain became a currency more powerful than coin. A sack of wheat could buy land or loyalty. A few months of food could buy a lifetime of service. Meat, oil, and wine were also valuable. But grain was the base layer of survival. When Rome's money failed, calories replaced coin. The third asset that kept its value was hard metal itself, not the cheapened silver denarius. Real gold and real silver, jewelry, plate, and later the solidus coin. As base coins were debased, gold became the real standard. Taxes for the rich were often demanded in gold. Bribes to generals and officials were paid in gold. Foreign tribes accepted gold, even when they scorned Roman copper. Gold could be hidden, melted, or carried across borders. It held value when paper laws did not. Archaeologists still dig up buried Roman hoards. Families once hid those coins in crisis and never returned. The empire died, but the metal sits unchanged in the ground. Gold did not care who ruled Rome. It did not care what language the tax collector spoke. It remained scarce, portable, and trusted. Poor citizens rarely held gold. Their savings died in bad silver. But merchants, officers, and landowners who shifted to gold survived better. They could escape collapsing cities with their wealth in a belt pouch. They could buy safety far from ruined provinces. In a failed empire, hard money outlived imperial money. The fourth surviving asset was less obvious. It was not a coin or a field or a granary. It was protection, membership in a strong network. As Roman law weakened, force replaced law. Courts stopped working. Tax collectors became private thieves. Bandits and warlords carved up provinces. Ordinary citizens faced a brutal question. Who will defend me when the state cannot? Many people answered by attaching themselves to the powerful. They became clients of big landowners. They traded legal freedom for safety and food. Others attached themselves to the church. The church owned land, stored grain, and had moral authority. Bishops negotiated with invading kings. Monasteries guarded books, tools, and skills. Being inside those networks was an asset. A poor man under a strong patron could survive famine. A craftsman under the protection of a monastery could keep working. Even nobles needed allies. Gold without guards was just bait, so protection became wealth. Not abstract security, but real shields and real favor. Relationships replaced regulations. Who you belonged to mattered more than what you own. That lesson echoed across the early Middle Ages. It still echoes today. So when Rome's economy collapsed, most paper-like wealth died. Urban status faded. Government jobs evaporated. Fancy houses in decaying cities lost all buyers. What survived were four kinds of assets: productive land, stored food, hard metal, and strong protection networks. If this sounds familiar, it should. Every major collapse since then has rhymed with Rome. When currencies are abused, hard money rises. When trade fails, food replaces finance. When states weaken, protection beats paperwork. When cities falter, the countryside matters again. A Roman senator who moved early into land and gold did better. So did the family that filled its granaries instead of buying luxuries. So did the craftsman under a powerful patron or bishop. They were not untouched by chaos, but they had anchors when the imperial sea drained away. The point is not to pretend we live in the year 400. The point is to see repeating patterns. Debased money is not new. Overstretched empires are not new. Collapsing middle classes are not new. Rome lived through all of it. The Romans who survived best did not guess the future perfectly. They simply shifted from promises to realities, from salaries to soil, from appearances to calories, from paper power to hard metal, from lonely independence to strong alliances. If our own systems ever face Roman-sized stress, the logic will rhyme. The specific assets may look different. The technology will look very different, but the hierarchy will feel familiar. Real production over paper wealth, food over lifestyle, hard value over soft claims, protection over empty titles. History is not a script we must repeat, but it is a map of traps we can avoid. Rome walked into those traps step by step. We can, at the very least, walk with our eyes open. If you want more hidden lessons from fallen empires, subscribe to Empire and Money and keep learning where power and wealth really survive.